Hello, friends. Good morning. Hope you all are doing good. Yesterday, I had a very wonderful evening with a lot of kids. I volunteered with the biotechnology department of Oloni Community College in an event, and it was Spring into STEAM event. So, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So, this was a very successful event. So, what we presented in our on our table was like pipetting, microscopes, and then yes, thermocyclers. Then we had DNA models, protein models. Like it was quite a crowd. Like there were lots and lots of curious and enthusiastic smart kids. They asked us a lot of questions, and I thoroughly enjoyed explaining the things to them. So I stayed there until 8:30 p.m. So I think in future I will participate or I will volunteer in more such activities with the kids, science activity with the kids. Okay, that was about my last evening. Let's continue with this wonderful book, The Emperor's New Mind by Sir Roger Penrose. Okay, so we are still in the first chapter, friends. Can you believe it? We are on page 21 and we are still in the first chapter, Introduction. Can a computer have a mind? Okay, let's continue with this. Strong AI and Searle's Chinese Room. There is a point of view referred to as strong AI which adopts a rather extreme position on these issues. According to strong AI, not only would the devices just refer to intelligent minds, etc., but mental qualities of a sort can be attributed to the logical functioning of any computational device, even the very simplest mechanical ones, such as a thermostat. The idea is that mental activity is simply the carrying out of some well defined sequence of operations, frequently referred to as an algorithm. I shall be more precise later on as to what an algorithm actually is. For the moment, it will be adequate to define an algorithm simply as a calculation procedure of some kind. In the case of a thermostat, the algorithm is extremely simple. The device registers whether the temperature is greater or smaller than the setting, and then it arranges that the circuit be disconnected in the former case and connected in the latter. For any significant kind of mental activity of a human brain, the algorithm had to be something vastly more complicated. But according to the strong AI view, an algorithm nevertheless, it would differ very greatly in degree from the simple algorithm of the thermostat, but need not differ in principle. Thus, according to strong AI, the difference between the essential functioning of a human brain, including all its conscious manifestations, and that of a thermostat lies only in this much greater complication, or perhaps higher order structure or self referential properties, or some other attribute that one might assign to an algorithm. In the case of a brain, oh, okay, suddenly I remember something. In my last video, I pronounced something wrong. Like it should be analogies, not analogies. Sorry, folks. Most importantly, all mental qualities, thinking, feeling, intelligence, understanding, consciousness, are to be regarded, according to this view, merely as aspects of this complicated functioning, that is to say, they are features merely of the algorithm being carried out by the brain. The virtue of any specific algorithm would lie in its performance, namely in the accuracy of its results, its scope, its economy, and the speed with which it can be operated. An algorithm purporting to match what is presumed to be operating in a human brain would need to be a stupendous thing. But if an algorithm of this kind exists for the brain, then it could in principle be run on a computer. Indeed, it could be run on any modern general purpose electronic computer were it not for limitations of storage, space, and speed of operation. The justification of these remarks will come later when we come to consider the universal Turing machine. It is anticipated that any such limitations would be overcome for the large, vast computers of the not too distant future. In that eventuality, such as algorithm, if it could be found, would presumably pass the Turing test. The supporters of strong AI would claim that whenever the algorithm were run, it would in itself experience feelings, have a consciousness, be a mind. Quite fascinating. Friends, do you think this is going to happen? That computer will have a brain, a mind, and have feelings like human beings? I don't know. By no means everyone would be in agreement that mental states and algorithms can be identified with one another in this kind of way. In particular, the American philosopher John Searle, I hope I am pronouncing this right, his last name, 1980-1987, has strongly disputed that view. He has cited examples where simplified versions of the Turing test have actually already been passed by an appropriately programmed computer, but he gives strong arguments to support the view that the relevant mental attribute of understanding is nevertheless entirely absent. One such example is based on a computer program designed by Roger Schenck and Abelson, 1977. The aim of the program is to provide a simulation of the understanding of simple stories like a man went into a restaurant and ordered a hamburger. Yum. When the hamburger arrived, it was burned to a crisp, and the man stormed out of the restaurant angrily, without paying the bill or leaving a tip. Sure enough. For a second example, a man went into a restaurant and ordered a hamburger. When the hamburger came, he was very pleased with it, and as he left the restaurant, he gave the waitress a large tip before paying his bill. As a test of understanding of the stories, the computer is asked whether the man ate the hamburger in each case, a fact which had not been explicitly mentioned in either story. To this kind of simple story and simple question, the computer gives answers which are essentially indistinguishable from the answers an English speaking human being would give. Namely, for this particular examples, no in the first case and yes in the second. Computer is quite clever. So in this very limited sense, a machine has already passed a Turing test. The question that we must consider is whether this kind of success actually indicates any genuine understanding on the part of the computer or perhaps on the part of the program itself. Searle's argument that it does not is to invoke his concept of a Chinese room. He envisages, first of all, that the stories are to be told in Chinese rather than English, surely an inessential change, and that all the operations of the computer's algorithm for this particular exercise are supplied in English as a set of instructions for manipulating counters with Chinese symbols on them. Searle imagines himself doing all the manipulations inside a locked room. The sequences of symbols representing the stories and then the questions are fed into the room through some small slot. No other information whatever is allowed in from the outside. Finally, when all the manipulations are complete, the resulting sequences fed out again through the slot. Since all these manipulations are simply carrying out the algorithm of Sheng's program, it must turn out that this final resulting sequence is simply the Chinese for yes or no, as the case may be, giving the correct answers to the original question in Chinese about a story in Chinese. Oh, I hear my neighbor, one of my neighbors, mowing the lawn. Oopsie. It's okay, but still, let's continue. Now, Searle makes it quite clear that he does not understand a word of Chinese, so he would not have the faintest idea what the stories are about. Nevertheless, by correctly carrying out the series of operations which constitute Sheng's algorithm, the instructions of this algorithm having been given to him in English, he would be able to do as well as a Chinese person who would indeed understand the stories. Searle's point, and I think it is quite a powerful one, is that the mere carrying out of a successful algorithm does not in itself imply that any understanding has taken place. That's quite right. Imagine Searle locked in his Chinese room would not understand a single word of any of the stories. A number of objections have been raised against Searle's argument. I shall mention only those that I regard as being of serious significance. In the first place, there is perhaps something rather misleading in the phrase not understand a single word as used above. Understanding has as much to do with patterns as with individual words. While carrying out algorithms of this kind, one might well begin to perceive something of the patterns that the symbols make without understanding the actual meanings of many of the individual symbols. For example, the Chinese character of hamburger, if indeed there is such a thing, could be replaced by that for some other dish, say chow mein, and the stories would be significantly affected. Nevertheless, it seems to me to be reasonable to suppose that in fact very little of the story's actual meanings, even regarding such replacements as being unimportant, would come through if one merely kept following through the details of such an algorithm. In the second place, one must take into account the fact that the execution of even a rather simple computer program would normally be something extraordinarily lengthy and tedious if carried out by human beings manipulating symbols. This is, after all, why we have computers to do such things for us. If Searle were actually to perform Schenk's algorithm in the way suggested, he would be likely to be involved with many days, months, or years of extremely boring work in order to answer just a single question, not an altogether plausible activity for a philosopher. However, this does not seem to me to be a serious objection, since we are here concerned with matters of principle and not with practicalities. The difficulty arises more with the putative computer program, which is supposed to have sufficient complication to match a human brain and thus to pass the Turing test proper. Oof. Any such program would have to be horrendously complicated. One can imagine that the operation of these programs in order to effect the reply to even some rather simple Turing test question might involve so many steps that there would be no possibility of any single human being carrying out the algorithm by handwritten with a normal human lifetime. Whether this would indeed be the case is hard to say in the absence of such a program. But in any case, this question of extreme complication cannot, in my opinion, simply be ignored. It is true that we are concerned with matters of principle here, but it is not conceivable to me that there might be some critical amount of complication in an algorithm which it is necessary to achieve in order that the algorithm exhibit mental qualities. Perhaps this critical value is so large that no algorithm complicated to that degree could conceivably be carried out by hand by human being in the manner envisaged by Searle. Okay friends, this much for today. I won't torture you anymore. Hope you like it. If you like this, please click on the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye bye.